Welcome to Honestly Rated, and today we'll be talking about your favorite MC Hammer fan, Wallop. He was one of my first trap masters I was able to get, and today we'll be seeing if Wallop is able to crush the competition with his abilities and overall strength. But first, let's go over the lore of Wallop. So, for generations, Wallop's people lived inside of a volcanic lava pit of Mount Scourge and were able to forge some of the greatest weapons to ever be seen in Skylands. And you know, obviously, Wallop was one of the greatest seen by any of the masters there. With his two double-wielding hammers, he was able to make some of the finest swords and the finest tools out there. And he was able to show himself off in combat when inside that volcanic lava pit, a fiery snake fucking sky demon came out of it, and he was so valiant and charged forth to kill that bastard and save his people. And now, he just helps the Skylanders and beats the shit out of anybody that comes in front of him. Hopefully these smashing skills they talk about inside of his story are able to shine inside of Wallop's gameplay that we're going to take a look at. But if you want to see your Skylander inside of one of these videos, just leave it down in the comments. Eventually, at some point, I'll get around to doing them. And if you want to make sure that maybe I already done a video on your Skylander, there is a playlist on my channel and a link in the description that shows all the ones I have previously done. So, with that out of the way, let's go to Wallop's first two starting moves. Starting off, we have Traptanian Hammer and Hammer Toss. These two moves are like two sides of a coin. They're very much different, and they appeal each other very well. I really like them. So, Traptanian Hammers is our simple ground pound attack that's hitting one enemy, and it is front-facing. You have to be in front of your enemy to hit them. While our Hammer Drop attack, normally you have to be in front of them too, but sometimes you, I don't know, like the hammer goes back behind you. It's a throwing move, a nice range move, that does a lot of area damage, but not a lot of damage in itself. It doing 16 and our ground pound attack doing 23 at level 13. Ground pound is a lot faster than the hammer drop. Hammer drop takes a long time, or not a long time, but a lot longer to do damage with. And they work very well with each other. The only weird thing is that, well, since Wallop has to use his hammers to, Wallop, if you catch the hammer in the sky before it hits the ground, it will explode into a bunch of fireflies, I like to say. And sometimes it does damage to enemies, sometimes I see it doesn't, but overall, still works pretty well. And if you throw your hammer to an enemy before it can go into the sky, it significantly reduces the area effect and normally just only hits one enemy. So, with those slight things in there, I still find the moves to be pretty fun. For Wallop himself, I think they work pretty well. Him being a semi-tank, not as good as Slobbertooth, work nicely. Having that range in there, just guaranteeing that you don't take a lot of damage, is nice. And not a lot of melee characters usually have that, so hooray, Wallop. Next up, Tantrum Mode and Hammer Slammer. Hammer Slammer is just an upgrade to our Hammer Drop. That almost takes the damage all the way up to how much damage we're normally doing with our Traptanian Hammers, so it's a pretty good upgrade. But our Traptanian Hammers are also doing more damage because of this new thing called Tantrum Mode. Tantrum Mode is like this zen state with Wallop. If you do so much hammer slamming, eventually he'll hit this kind of point where he does it faster and does more damage with it. The only things that take him out of it is, for one, if you're going too slow. For two, you get hit. And for three, maybe you got a hand cramp and you go too slow. Your hand will probably end up kind of hurting, because mine kind of did. But to be fair, my hands normally kind of hurt. So if you got good dexterity, you'll probably be fine. If you don't, this move probably won't be seen much by you. Last up, we have When Hammers Collide and Cutting Edge. Cutting Edge is just a simple damage upgrade that doesn't really need to be talked about, but it does make our hammers look kind of cool, I guess. So that's neat. But something I really do want to talk about is When Hammers Collide, because I find this to be kind of a negative for Wallop. When Hammers Collide allows us to horizontally throw out both of our hammers and create an explosion. Something that already does that is with his hammer drop, where instead of horizontally, we throw it vertically, then horizontally, and it explodes and hits a bunch of enemies. And I find this one to do it worse. It does initial damage with the throw, and then does 26 damage with the explosion, but sometimes that explosion doesn't do damage for some reason, and it sometimes doesn't self-detonate. You can detonate this to make it go either further or be really close to you, but sometimes I feel like when I press it, even though it's close to me, it doesn't explode and it just goes out the full way. At least with Hammer Drop, it is fully consistent, and can be a lot more spammed than this one, because since you're throwing both of them out, you have to wait for it to explode. But with Hammer Drop, you can at least throw both of them, and they'll both do 22 damage, at least at level 16, and would eventually do more damage than if you were just to continuously use Hammer Collide. Something that I feel like with this colliding move they could have done was maybe make it more of a physical move, where you just do the same thing, you throw your hammers, but instead of throwing them out, you just keep holding them in your hands, you kind of collide them together like to make like a bang, and it could have done like stun, or just do a nice amount of damage that has some knockback to it. You know, something like that. It would have been cool. It would have been nice. I think it would have fit a little bit better with Wallop than having two moves virtually do the same thing. But we're going to go on to the paths now. Hopefully, maybe with the upgrades, they can make them a lot more diverse and kind of make them not feel the same way. On to the top path with Instant Tantrum and Total Meltdown. And let me tell you, this was a lifesaver, honestly. Instant Tantrum allows us to go into our Tantrum mode just by holding down square now. And man, my thumbs have never been happier. Honestly. Tantrum mode is also just a very good place to be. You know, doing more damage, doing it faster even. And then when we add on that upgrade of Total Meltdown, we're even doing even more damage with it. So, yeah, Tantrum is beautiful. And now it's even more beautiful. It got to shine, it got to bloom, and it works really, really well. So, starting off too, very well. Kind of lame, you got damage upgrade, but hey, fuck it, sure. And last onto the top path, we have Aftershock Wave, which is a little weird and kind of misleading, honestly. So every time we leave Tantrum mode now, we throw out a little hammer that bounces around and has a great old time. Think of like a jackhammer when you just kind of let it go in a cartoon, you know? It does the exact same thing. The reason I call it kind of misleading is that, well, you think from, you know, all the fucking jumping and hitting and throwing and the little shit on the ground that it would just, you know, constantly keep hitting. It doesn't. It only hits once, which is a really dumb thing, because it would have been better if it would just hit constantly. And it's just a weird model to be like, yeah, we're going to throw this out, and it's just going to hit one time. The other bounces, even though it's in the fucking enemy's model, I don't know. It's just giving them a good massage. It's really weird. It's really weird. It's fine, you know. Like, do you really need more projectiles? You could honestly just kept this, and then got rid of the fucking when hammers collide. And honestly, I think it would have just kind of worked better, because then at least something could have came out of Wallop's moveset that wasn't two fucking throwing things. Whatever. We'll go on to the bottom path, which is actually gonna deal with when the hammers collide. So let's see if they were able to make it somewhat diverse. Better Shrapnel and Traptanium Splinters are going to be the first two bottom paths we talk about, because they deal with the same thing. And with our Shrapnel now, our hammers, when thrown either horizontally or vertically, now splinter off and deal 7 damage to even farther things, which is in itself not the greatest, just because, well, our hammers were already kind of doing area damage. I don't really think we needed the extra little 7 puny damage that it normally does. But with our third upgrade inside that path, with the Splinters one, it will now stick to enemies and do somewhat linger damage to them. Obviously, again, it's still 7. It's not doing a shitload. It's not even 10. It doesn't even hit double digits. But at least it's something. For now, at least, it also is very much more underwhelming than our top one, which kind of sucks. So it's not like the coolest thing, but I guess it's something, you know. It is something. And for our last one that we need to talk about, What a Collision, is simply just a upgrade to our Hammer Toss. They don't do anything special with it, nothing crazy. It is just creating a bigger explosion now, and it is also just dealing more damage, which I guess in itself is a nice buff to it, because it did feel like you could probably do the same amount of damage by using your Hammer Drop and your Collision. Like, they basically did the same thing. They still do the same thing. I still find it kind of redundant that they do the same thing and nothing really special to it. But I guess it validates it just a little bit more. But overall, with top and bottom, I definitely think you should go with the top path. It is definitely stronger. I feel like the abilities in there do a little bit more cooler stuff. If you're able to constantly spam square though, and you kind of just like doing tantrum mode like that, go for the bottom path. I don't think the bottom path is inherently bad. I just think it is inherently not the greatest. I feel like with the bottom path, it kind of splits a little bit more even with the whole abilities, you know. You still use it. You probably will start using your Hammer Toss a little bit more, and maybe your Hammer Drops just a little bit more than the top path will allow you to. But if you really don't give a fuck about that, and you just kind of want to do some meaty damage, have some fun, I definitely think the top one is a lot more fun. But that's just me. You can tell me how you feel in the comments below. But we have a soul gem to look at, so let's go into that. And like I said, we now have Now That's a Hammer, which allows us to charge up our hammer drop in the sky and kind of do somewhat of an underwhelming hit to everybody. I won't even lie. I'm being honest with y'all here, you know. I feel like this is kind of underwhelming. The reason I find it underwhelming is that for hammer drop, you kind of have to kind of linger the enemies into a single place and hope that they stay there. Because Wallop, again, even though he is somewhat of a tank and he does have somewhat of a good defense, he is not the greatest at it, you know? So, when it comes to hammer drop, like, he can somewhat hold enemies in the same area. He can do that semi-well without taking a lot of damage. But I just don't think he does enough. And since you kind of have to let it charge, yeah, I don't find it too worth it. Now, obviously, you don't have to do it to the full degree, right? You could do it to like the second one and still do stuff. But for me personally, I just would probably just keep throwing them out. I wouldn't even care to hold it up. Maybe for like bosses or people that just don't move often, just overall stronger enemies, I could probably see a benefit in it. But for a soul gem, I don't know. I think this definitely just could have just been a move in itself inside of the secondary path, which isn't what a soul gem should feel. Soul gem should feel very special, very, maybe not very strong, but just very unique into the sense where you're like, damn, yeah, that was worth trying to find that soul gem. But again, that's just me. But let's go on to a rating and what I will rate Wallop in the end of it all. So after checking up on Wallop's whole toolkit and every single hammer he had, my final rating for Wallop is going to be a solid 3 out of 5. Smack dab in the middle, just because I don't love him, but I can't say I hate Wallop. Even though his gameplay is just realistically 2 moves, you know, arranged and just kind of smacking people in front, I find it to be somewhat of an addicting and fun moveset to have. I won't lie, I enjoy it. His paths were not the funnest, not like the craziest, not like super diverse in where it breaks a character into different things. But I couldn't say it's bad either. I think both of them kind of work. I think you could definitely pick both and have fun. I feel like the top path is still superior, but you know, to some people that doesn't want, if you want to break your thumbs, you can go with the bottom path, and I think you'll still have a great time. Kind of puts him there. I think the thing that would have really raised him was if he just had a different special than when hammers collide. Man, even thinking about him before playing, I couldn't think what his third move was, and I see why. That is super forgettable just because it works the exact same way. If they just, like, again, with my idea was, like, to just keep the hammer collide. Make it so it's up close, where he just kind of smacks it in front of him. Make a tiny explosion with knockback. That would have made him, honestly, a pretty great trap team member. And just, honestly, a great character. But they didn't. They make it a throwable. Kind of works the same way as his hammer drop. So, yeah. That's all I got to say. If you want to see your character next, again, leave it down in the comments. Or go check out the playlist, because maybe I already have it there. You won't know until you look. So, yeah. Thank you guys for watching. And I hopefully will see you next time. Peace.